and love, everyone. Welcome back to this sane and serene YouTube channel. If you are new here, a special welcome to you. My name is Saran from SaranSays.com, and on this YouTube channel, I love to make videos about grit, gratitude, and goal setting, books, body, and bettering your life. So if those are topics that interest you, make sure to subscribe. And while you're subscribing, you can hit the post bell notification below so that you can stay updated when I upload new videos. Today, we are reading, resourcing, and reviewing The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up by Mark Manson. So the tone of this book is interesting. There's definitely some sarcasm in it, but for the most part, it's kind of straightforward. What Manson is trying to do is to help the reader deconstruct the way that they look at their lives and to look at it in a new way where they can prioritize humility, they can celebrate their failures, and ultimately they can understand what they do and don't have control over. So the author first starts off by breaking down anxiety, fear, guilt, things that the average person feels, often in their lifetime. And he says, number one, not only are we not as productive and we don't get to reach our goals when we let anxiety and fear and guilt take the stage, but that actually accepting the fact that we may be anxious and afraid does give us power, and that we live in a culture and a society where we believe that we have to always be on and we have to always be in control. So when we feel out of control, we automatically go into panic mode instead of just accepting and understanding that this is a natural part of life and that this is just a natural occurrence in us understanding ourselves and our journey. He also says that we should just really embrace not feeling good, because by forcing ourselves to feel better than we actually feel, we're hyper present to the fact that we don't feel good. And if instead we just accept that we don't feel good all the time, not feeling so great wouldn't be so bad after all. And one of my favorite passages in the book, Manson talks about choosing your struggle, how it's not about asking yourself, what do you want out of life, but instead asking yourself, what pain do you want to endure in life? Because happiness requires struggle. He writes in this passage, for example, most people want to get the corner office and make a boatload of money, but not many people want to suffer through 60-hour work weeks, long commutes, obnoxious paperwork, and arbitrary corporate hierarchies to escape the confines of an infinite cubicle hell. Most people want to have great sex and an awesome relationship, but not everyone is willing to go through the tough conversations, the awkward silences, the hurt feelings, and the emotional psychodrama to get there. And so they settle. They settle and wonder, what if? For years and years, until the question morphs from what if to what else. And when the lawyers go home and the alimony check is in the mail, they say, what for? If not for their lowered standards and expectations 20 years prior, then what for? I really love this passage because it kind of challenges us to remember, like, we're going to go through struggles in life, and part of what makes life worth living is the joy that we feel on the other side of the struggle. It's the climb to the top that gives us the fulfillment. It's not the feeling at the top. It's the journey that we go through to get there that really gives us the value of life. You know the analogy where people say, if you've never been in darkness, you don't know what light is. You could be surrounded by light, but if you don't know darkness, then you don't know light. He's saying, choose your struggle. Ultimately, it's about what are you willing to sacrifice for what you want, because in order to be happy, sacrifices must be made. Manson says that creating good values in your life are a huge part of how you stay happy and fulfilled long term. He lists values like pleasure, always being right, material success, and staying positive as values that don't really lead us to true happiness, because most of the time we're just creating a false reality in our mind that ends up just temporarily existing before we're met with the true reality that, number one, we don't know everything, and we never will. Number 2, pleasure is only pleasurable if we're not hurting ourselves or anyone else in the process. And staying positive just doesn't work when things happen in life that require us to be frustrated or be sad or be angry. And that is reality. Reality is where you want to be, because there is true happiness in reality. And that we've been sold this fantasy like our lives are supposed to be one long symphony of smiles and rainbows, but that's really BS. And that's not how you live life without giving up. He says good values are reality-based, socially constructed, and immediate and controllable. Bad values are superstitious, socially destructive, and not immediate or controllable. He says honesty is a good example of a good value because you have control over how honest you want to be. You can be as honest as you want to in the moment, and ultimately being honest makes the world a better place. He says popularity or being liked is a bad value because you'll never have control over how people feel about you. And half the time, popularity just leads to a short-term fix for whatever is going on deep inside, whatever insecurities or pains that you're suffering with, that you pack underneath wanting to be popular, wanting to be liked, wanting to be valued in a falsified way, instead of just being at peace with who you are and loving yourself authentically. In a section called The Failure Success Paradox, Manson talks about how life is most authentically lived when we're not afraid to fail, and that true improvement and true growth comes from thousands of little mistakes that we make over our lifetime. If we are unwilling to fail, we are unwilling to succeed. Manson talks about how having a goal that requires us to try and try again and subsequently fail and fail again ultimately gives our life purpose, meaning, and longevity. If we limit our goals to buying a house or making a certain amount of money, once we get to those places, we have nothing left to live for. We're excited to get there, and then we get there and realize, okay, there's not much more life can give me. But by having goals that require us to continuously stretch ourselves, by continuing to see the future and to see what's ahead of us as something that requires us to sacrifice, to mold, to bend, to be flexible where needed, we actually strive for more, we achieve more, and in the end, we are more fulfilled. In the last chapter of the book entitled And Then You Die, Manson paints the picture and reminds us that ultimately being present, being alive and aware exactly where you are is the best thing that you can do for your life, because any one moment is only defined by how much you appreciate that moment, how much you are aware of everything that moment is giving you, and that is what life is truly about. The subtle art of not giving up came to me at a time where I was tired of being a perfectionist. I was tired of always being in control, and I just said to myself, I want to find a way to look at my life differently. I want to embrace all of the ups and downs. I want to change my perspective and my dispositions to my failures and to my successes. So the subtle art of not giving up came into my life at a really important time for me. I would recommend it to anyone who feels like they are maybe struggling with some similar issues and who's looking for a new way to approach their life where they can be a little more easygoing on themselves. They can be in the moment. They can understand that, you know, at the end of the day, it's a short life. And it's a life that is better lived when we take the right things seriously, right? When we know what matters most to us, and when we're willing to appreciate and accept the dark days as well as the bright days. Thank you all so much for tuning into this book review. You can find The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up by Mark Manson on Amazon or through your local book distributor. I appreciate you all for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Peace and love, sanity and serenity.